before this episode. If you want to see the words as well as hear them, get exclusive content, access to the regular episodes before anyone else, and take part in the monthly questions and comments edition, you can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify and get all of that for the price of a very average coffee a month. Okay, let's get on with it. Here's a prosecutor summing up his own case, talking about his own witness.
Was Miss Adams a perfect witness? No. She was argumentative, avoided, difficult. But does that mean you should throw away everything she says?
When the man trying to win the case admits to that, on the record, you know what kind of testimony you've just watched. Mila Adams went viral for it, and the internet made her a punchline. But strip all of that away, and she was making a serious allegation.
He was like, what was all that shit you was talking?
And then what happened?
And I was beginning to say, you said, and I couldn't finish my statement, and he smacked me.
So when you say he smacked you...
He smacked me with an open hand.
A 6-foot NFL receiver, a 4'11" woman, a closed door, an open hand across the face. That's the allegation, and those are the words we're here to examine. Welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I've studied the words of thousands of criminals, so I can show you how people use words to lie, to cheat, and to manipulate, and what the truth sounds like too. So this case we're going to look at now is the one of Stefon Diggs. And he was found not guilty this week of assaulting his personal chef, Mila Adams. And her testimony went viral. I've had so many requests to look at her, I just had to. Now, that prosecutor was right. She was not in any way a great witness. So I'm going to look at her words, and I'm going to break this into two parts. The first part, I'm going to show you how she used so many deceptive linguistic markers when she spoke, things that people will have picked up on, either they noticed or they felt. It certainly ruined her credibility, and as we go through them and we label them, there'll be some takeaways for you for next time you're watching a trial. If you're having a conversation with your family, your friends, your nearest and dearest, you might be able to spot some of these deceptive markers in them. And then we'll look at the assault allegation. Is it possible, for all her chaos as a witness, that she was telling the truth? That's what we'll look at. So let's look at deceptive markers. Number one from Mila Adams.
Ms. Adams, you just testified under oath about what happened on December 2nd.
Okay, I also didn't put in a police report our sexual relationship because I was ashamed. The police report got leaked. I didn't put a lot of things. The most important thing was the attack in the police report. Me reporting anything outside of why he got upset, I didn't feel the need to put it. I was scared of how it was received by the public. He's in a very public relationship with Cardi B. So I did not put a lot of things in the police report. My most important thing was him assaulting me and choking me and stuff.
Okay, so let's look at what she did there. She is asked, Miss Adams, you just testified under oath about what happened on December the 2nd, correct? And her response is, okay, I also didn't put in the police report our sexual relationship because I was ashamed. The police report got leaked. I didn't put a lot of things. The most important thing was the attack in the police report. So what she does here, we call moving to safer ground. She doesn't answer the question, which is, you just testified under oath about what happened. She could have said, yes, I did. No, I didn't would also be a perfectly acceptable answer, but she doesn't deal with the question at all. She moves on to things that she's more happy to talk about, things that feel safer for her, at least, which suggests, and when you see someone move to safer ground away from a question, you can say the question causes them stress and the answer might also cause them stress. So they're moving to something that's way more comfortable for them to talk about. And what is it that she's doing? Well, I think what she's doing there is just throwing out a whole load of breadcrumbs, hoping that one of those will be interesting enough to talk about, so she doesn't have to talk about the question that she's avoiding. So you look at the breadcrumbs that she's put out there. She mentions our sexual relationship. Then she goes for a little bit of, I was ashamed. So there's a little bit of justification there, wanting us to feel sorry for her. And also that sort of victim claiming, I was ashamed and that's why I didn't do it. What many people might have noticed, not have noticed though, because you probably saw she didn't answer the question, but did you notice that she has admitted to something here? She has admitted she's not fully honest when she feels she has to be, because what she says is she didn't put the things in the police report because she was ashamed and she didn't want that story getting out there. So she has admitted right there she's not fully honest. Doesn't mean she's lying, just that she will keep things out and not give the whole truth when she feels she has to be. She then carries on and says, me reporting anything outside of why he got upset, I didn't feel the need to put it. I was scared of how it would be received by the public. Now, this is something we're just going to dig into. What was she saying here? Because she says, my reporting outside why he got upset, I didn't feel the need to put it in. So what she's saying is this was all about the attack. She was only going to put in things about the attack and she wasn't going to put in anything else in case this got leaked. But she doesn't say that. Her instinct, the first thing she says is why he got upset. When we look at the allegation, when we look at her describing the alleged assault, I've got a conclusion on that, and I think that why he got upset is very important and plays into that. She doesn't say, my reporting outside of the assault, I didn't feel the need to put it in, just why he got upset. I didn't feel the need to put it. I was scared of how it'd be perceived by the public. He's in a very public relationship with Cardi B. And this again is more avoidance going on. So she's moved to that safer ground. She's avoiding the answer and she's throwing out some crumbs here. Again, she's putting Cardi B in there. Look, is everyone going to be dazzled by the dropping of a showbiz name? And therefore, we're going to start talking about Cardi B because, when you're in a conversation with people, if you mention Cardi B and, some sort of gossip about her or something like that, then that might well be what people go on to discuss. She's just throwing out these breadcrumbs, hoping that something will get picked up. Let's listen to some more from Mila.
3 weeks ago, your lawyer demanded $5.5 million from Mr. Diggs, didn't he?
Mr. Diggs offered me $100,000 to recant my statement.
That is a yes.
That is the only.
Maybe be heard at sidebar, please.
Objection, move to strike. Your last part of the witness's answer.
I'm no legal expert, but I'm told that could have caused a mistrial. 3 weeks ago, your lawyer demanded $5.5 million from Mr. Diggs, didn't he? It's a simple yes/no question, and she doesn't say yes or no. And when that happens, you have to ask why. Just go with the two possibilities. If it's no, which is, then that's fine, right? That's not what happened because the allegation here really is she was after money rather than any sort of justice or, that any assault happened. She was just blackmailing for money. So no, it would have been a great supportive answer right there. No, he didn't ask for money from Mr. Diggs. Why wouldn't you say that if that was the truth? And why wouldn't she say yes? Well, because yes would therefore make her look like she's getting money. So to me, you go there, well, the real answer, because she's not giving us a real answer, she's not giving us a yes or a no, the real answer would have caused her stress and discomfort. And therefore, which one of those would have caused her stress and discomfort? Yes. So I could see from there, in my opinion, that the lawyer did ask for $5.5 million from Mr. Diggs. It's a simple yes-no question. So when you get one of those and you don't hear a yes or a no, and we have something else, again, it's avoidance, then you have to ask yourself why. What is it they're avoiding? Which one of the two options is the worst, would cause them the most stress? And your truth is probably there. So when you hear someone not answer a yes-no question, dig into what the possible answers are, what the implications are, and you can probably work out the truth. Let's get some more from her.
I'm sorry, and this is on page 113 of Exhibit 3. You will be paying me out for the season and the money you said you would give me for my business. Wasted my fucking time being here because you got a fucking circus going on, right?
Yes.
So when he said he wouldn't be paying you, he was referring to your demand that after you leave your employment on December 2nd, he nonetheless continued to pay you $2,000 a week for the rest of the New England Patriots football season while you were not working for him, right?
That's not how it goes.
You will be paying me out for the season, right?
I was a contracted employee.
It's a yes or no question, ma'am.
I don't know how to answer that question. Sorry.
And before you said that, if you turn just one page back to page 112, what Mr. Diggs said to you that you were responding to was, "I'ma leave you be. Thank you for cooking for me for this season. I appreciate you. Hate it even got to this." That's what you were responding to when you told him he would be paying you out for the season, right?
No, it's a other full context of those messages.
Ma'am, was the message that came from Mr. Diggs that preceded your demand that you be paid out for the season, "Thank you for cooking for me this season. I appreciate you. I'ma leave you be."
Can you say that again?
You can look right down there on page 112. "I'ma leave you be."
What was your question?
I'm not finished. "Thank you for cooking for me for this season." You can read along and correct me if I get it wrong. "I appreciate you. Hate it even got like this." Right?
That's what it says, yes.
Okay. And you were really hoping that Mr. Diggs would give you some money so you could open your own restaurant, weren't you?
Objection.
That was our agreement.
That was what you wanted him to give you, right?
That was an agreement.
So many, you're just going to come away with so much from when we break this answer down. The first thing I want you to notice is she's asked a yes/no question to confirm what was in the text, which starts with, "You'll be paying me out of the season and the money you said you would give me for my business." Right? Is that what's in the text? And she says yes. So she can answer a yes/no question when there is no stress involved. Obviously, this is all documented, so there'd be really stupid to lie about that or even just avoid it. So it's really easy just to give a yes. So she can answer yes/no questions when it doesn't cause her stress or when it's the easier thing to do. The next question from the attorney is, "So when he said he wouldn't be paying you, he was referring to your demand that after you leave your employment on December 2nd, he nonetheless continued to pay you $2,000 a week for the rest of the New England Patriots football season while you were not working for him, right?" Another yes/no question, and her answer is not yes or no. It's sorry, she stutters. She goes, "That's not how it goes." So once more, ask why there's no clear answer. Because if the answer was no, that would be in her favor once more for her to say, "No, that's not right. No, I wasn't asking him for $2,000 a week for the rest of the football season." That would be in her favor. So why does she not say the thing that would be in her favor? The no. And why does she not say yes? Because yes would cause her stress, because again, it would look bad for her. It would look like she was after money. So when you get a yes/no question and we get a diversion answer like "that's not how it goes," ask again why there is no clear answer. I think this is also a case of breadcrumbs there. That's not how it goes. The attorney here is like, got the questions all worked out. But to Mila, just in regular conversation, if someone says to you, "That's not how it goes," you say, "Well, tell me how it goes then." And the conversation goes off to something a lot more safer than this area that's causing her a lot of stress. "You will be paying me out for the season, right? I was a contracted employee." So "I was a contracted employee" is not answering the question. It's a yes/no question, ma'am, which is, "You'll be paying me out for the season, right? I was a contracted employee." Again, she hasn't said yes or no. She's obviously trying to hide something, trying to hold something back. Then she says, "I don't know how to answer that question. Sorry." And she looks quite smug about it there. But this is leakage. It's very hard to deceive. You have to think about everything that you're saying. You have to do so many checks in with what you know to be the truth and the deception that you want to get across. Even if that deception is not lying, it's just holding information back, which I think is really what is going on here. You'll notice like she's not lying and saying, "No, I wasn't asking for more money." She's avoiding answering the question, probably because, lying is not a great option in court, and telling the truth wouldn't play well for her in court as well. So she's just trying this complete avoidance. It's a hard thing to do, and the truth will leak out in our words because we don't have the brain capacity to choose every single word deliberately, especially when we're under stress in court. "I don't know how to answer that question. Sorry," is what she says. It's not, "I don't know the answer to that question." You're asking me a question I do not know the answer to. It's, "I don't know how to answer that question." I think that's her letting us in on her thought process, which is, "I don't know the best way to answer this question. I can't, I can't lie. I can't tell the truth. What am I don't know how to answer that question." I think she's letting us in on her thought process. We have more of the exchange Before you said that, if you just turn one page back to page 112, what Mr. Diggs said to you that you were responding to was, "I'ma leave you be. Thank you for cooking for me this season. I appreciate you. Hate it even got to this." That's what you were responding to when you told him he would be paying you out for the season, right? And she says, "No, it's a full context to those messages." So avoiding again, you can see it's a yes/no question, and she's avoiding it, and she's bringing in a whole new subject to be discussed once more, rather than dealing with the question head on. She's bringing in the full context, and again, I think she's ready for please explain the full context to me, so she can talk about that, where she feels a hell of a lot more safe than dealing directly with the question she's been asked. The attorney's not having that though. She's not going to be distracted by asking for the full context. "Ma'am, was the message that came from Mr. Diggs that preceded your demand that you be paid out for the season? Thank you for cooking for me this season. I appreciate you. I'ma leave you be." And we get, "Can you say that again?" from Mila. This is responding to a question with a question. So responding to a question with a question is not answering the question. It's avoidance again. But also, this is buying thinking time. Remember I said earlier, when she said, "I don't know how to answer that question," I think she's like flapping inside, trying to form some words, think of a way out of the sort of jam she's got in with these questions and these text messages, which are documented. So this question to a question is, again, it's a stress reducer, buying thinking time to allow her more thinking time to form the answer that she wants to give, rather than just saying the simple truth, which is yes. Well, you can look right down there on page 112. "I'ma leave you be. What was your question?" she says. So she's still trying to slow things down here by, just seeing if she can take control of the conversation by her asking the questions. "I'm not finished," says the attorney. Then goes on to quote the text again. "Thank you for cooking for me this season. You can read along and correct me if I get it wrong. I appreciate you. Hate it even got like this, right?" And she says, "That's what it says. Yes." Finally, the simple truth that is what the text message said. It wasn't that difficult, Mila, was it? That's what it says. Yes. So I think she's bought that thinking time. She's done the interruptions. She's realised that every attempt she throws breadcrumbs out is not being picked up. So she has to deal directly. And she says, "That's what it says. Yes." A life lesson, if someone is avoiding your questions, if you just keep asking the question and don't be distracted and don't take the avoidance and don't go off on the off ramp onto what the context is or so on, you'll get an answer. Okay, and you were really hoping that Mr. Diggs would give you some money so you could open your own restaurant, weren't you? And Mila says that was our agreement. She's avoiding yes or no there. She could have just said yes. She could have said no. She is going extra, saying that was our agreement to share a priority, which is that, look, this wasn't me blackmailing and saying, you just give me money, you pay me, and then you give me the money to open my own restaurant. Otherwise, I'm going to go to the police. She's saying we had an agreement. So she's going extra by bringing the agreement into it. And again, is this another breadcrumb? Oh, what was the agreement? And I think this is maybe how Mila navigates tough conversations away from court by throwing out all these breadcrumbs, bringing other things in so that the conversation can go down there. Again, I'm sure if she was asked, oh, what was the agreement? She'd have been very happy to talk about the agreement. She's got that part, whether it's true or whether it's false, she's got that part well worked out in her mind. But it was that you wanted him to give you, wasn't right? And she says it was an agreement. You ready for some more, Mila? Let's do it.
And it turned out, Miss Adams, you had gotten paid for 2 of the 3 weeks that you said you hadn't gotten paid for, right?
This is missing a whole lot of stuff.
The yes or no question.
I can't answer your question correctly without the proper evidence.
Your Honor, may I approach? You may. Do you recognize this document as text exchanges between you and Sonny?
Yes.
Dated December 9, 2025?
Yes.
And you're the person in the bubbles on the left?
Yes.
And you write to Sonny, hey, so I looked over my transfers, payment history, and they sent payments 11/7, and 11/21, totaling $4,000. See that?
Yes.
So you knew that you had actually been paid for 2 of those 3 weeks that you tried to get paid for again, right?
What's your name? I never got your name.
Did you know that
I don't
you
know.
had
I was trying to address you by your name because I'm not this. I don't know. I can't answer that question correctly.
You knew on December 9th that you had been paid for 2 of the 3 weeks you said you hadn't been paid for, didn't you?
I don't understand the question.
You just acknowledged you wrote it to Sonny.
I was supposed to be paid for the week I was sent home. So
Okay.
I sent the incorrect amount because I didn't know he wasn't paying me for that week.
Right, so you sought $6,000 instead of $2,000.
That's my calculations was.
Right. And so that last week, that was a week you didn't work, right?
Because I was sent home.
Right. So you weren't in the kitchen cooking.
Mr. Diggs sent me home because he had girls at the
Ma'am,
house.
whatever you're going to
I
add
should
is
be
not
paid.
responsive, Your Honor. Yes.
I mean, you must have spotted half of them there. It turned out, Miss Adams, that you had gotten paid for 2 of the 3 weeks you said you hadn't gotten paid for, right? And she says, this is missing a whole lot of stuff. The attorney picks that one up. It was a yes or no question. And she says, I can't answer your question correctly without the proper evidence. I.e., I know what the correct answer is. I'm just going to force you to work hard to get that correct evidence. The next thing I noticed inside that exchange there, which was brilliant, was when she starts saying, what's your name? So look at the question that led to that. So you knew you had actually been paid for 2 of those 3 weeks that you tried to get paid for again, right? And she says, what's your name? I never got your name. Did you? I don't know. I'm just trying to address you by your name. And then the judge intervenes. This is buying thinking time and avoidance. And like I say, when you see that, then ask why. And it was the question about, so you knew you had actually been paid for 2 of those 3 weeks that you tried to get paid for again. She says, I don't know. I can't answer that question correctly. Well, if you don't know what correct is, how can you not answer that question correctly? We then get, I don't understand the question. So she is just, again, buying thinking time and avoiding there. And then she's told, you just acknowledged you wrote it to Sonny. And she says, I was supposed to be paid for the week I was sent home. So I sent the incorrect amount because I didn't know he wasn't paying me for that week. So I was supposed to be paid. So it wasn't the incorrect amount. It was actually the correct amount in your head. In your head, it was the correct amount. So she's acknowledging there that it was the wrong amount. And you'll notice here that she starts stuttering. Right, so you saw $6,000 instead of $2,000. That's my calculations was, and she starts stuttering or restarting. My calculations was. When we see that, we stutters and restarts. It's stress. It's stress, and she's unsure what to say for the best. So she starts saying and she had something to say, or her brain automatically had something to say, but then she thought better of it, pulls out of saying all of that, and starts to say something different. I'm talking about my calculations. She's then asked, so that last week, that was a week you didn't work, right? Yes, no question. And she says, because I was sent home. That is avoidance of the answer again, and also a little bit extra. She's adding extra in there. And when someone adds extra, they weren't asked. She was only asked, you didn't work. Yes or no. That's all that's needed to answer that. The fact she was sent home is her getting another subject in there that's important for her to get out, that she was sent home. And so when someone goes extra and answers more than the question demands, it's a priority to them. We can decode what's important to that person. Here it is. I think, feel sorry for me. I was sent home, I was fired. So you weren't in the kitchen cooking. Mr. Diggs sent me home because he had girls at the house. Crumb throwing again. Actually, what's the thing I'm going to remember from that that whole sequence there? It might actually be Mr. Diggs having girls at the house, because I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And if I was talking to Mila and that's what she said, I mean, oh, tell me more, tell me the salacious gossip. So I think this again is just crumb throwing in the hope that something will be picked up and spoken about, rather than that thing which is causing her stress. And she finishes off by saying, I should be paid. Not sure. Do you want some more?
Is there a difference between the text messages that you provided to the Dedham police and the text messages that are here?
Yes.
And what is that difference?
I deleted bet and pussy, and I'm ruining that bitch life. Not mistaken. Yeah.
And why did you delete those phrases when you provided those text messages to the Dedham police?
Because when I was abused in my previous relationship, when I would say things,
The objection is sustained.
he would.
The objection is sustained. There's no question there. Again, the jurors will disregard it. Sidebar.
Is there a difference between the text messages that you provided to the Denham police and the text messages that are there? And she says yes. Once more, she can be straightforward when she wants to be. And what is that difference? And she tells us which words she deleted. And why did you delete those phrases when you provided those text messages to the Denham police? Because, she says, and then she sighs, when I was abused in my previous relationship, when I would say things, and this is storytelling, this is her not just going privacy, didn't want people to see those messages. She's going to tell a story here. We can tell because it's the because at the start of it. And then this, when I was abused in my previous relationship, when I would say things, this is storytelling. Storytelling is great. Storytelling enables someone who's under pressure to do a lot. If you start at the very beginning, which is like, she's starting with something else in our previous relationship, you can talk for a long time telling a story. You're in control of the narrative. People sort of have to listen to you. It's rude to interrupt a story, especially one about abuse. And therefore, you can take the pressure out. You can sit comfortably telling your story as long as you like. Unless you're in court where there is an objection raised and it all goes to a sidebar. So there's Mila in court. I hope you noticed some of those and took note of some of those markers of deception in her words, because you can use them in your life. Look for especially avoidance, not answering yes/no questions directly, and also that buying thinking time by asking questions to questions and people throwing out breadcrumbs in the hope that you'll ask a question about what they've said and be distracted from the fact that you haven't got an answer to the question that you've asked. Knowing all that, next thing we're going to do is look at how she describes the alleged attack by Stefon Diggs. Now, you're a podcast person, so you get a little bit extra in this episode, which I love doing for podcast people because podcasting's my first love. And this is a statement that was released by Mila Adams in February this year, so a couple of months before the trial. And I thought this was just full, again, of deceptive indicators. I think from the context, there's been some rumours or some people saying she's only after money, so she released this statement. Let's read it. I am speaking now to address false information that has been shared publicly. And, you could just address false information. So that has been shared publicly. That's extra. And it's the fact it's out there. I think image, as we'll see in this statement, very important to her, or perception is very important to her. She then says, I am a professional chef with over 10 years of experience working with public figures and in the sports industry. My reputation and integrity matters deeply to me. So this is perception again, but I think this is also a resume statement. So before she speaks and says what she has to say, she wants to build her credibility by giving us this resume statement of saying, look how accomplished I am. Look, I'm all about my profession. This is very much a professional quibble, not a personal one. Claims that I engaged in settlement discussions are not true. Kind of straightforward, but also the focus is on them being not true. And when the statement is in the negative, very often that's where the focus is. So when she says not true, her focus is on true, because she could have said the claims are false, but they're not true. And not a definite dead cert that she is lying here and that they are true, but it's an indication. It shows where her focus is on the truth of these claims rather than the falseness of these claims. And then she uses one of my favourite deceptive words. I have never sought money nor engaged in settlement discussions to settle this matter. Statements suggesting otherwise are harmful and untrue. So we have that never. And I cannot tell you how often never is used when it means, yeah, it did happen. It's just so often people claim never. Lance Armstrong, I never doped. Yeah, you did. So when you see that word never, just ask yourself, why is it there? Could it possibly be hiding something? And again, we have the statements otherwise harmful and untrue. And again, it's not harmful and false, untrue. The focus is on truth again. And then we have this victim status line. As a survivor of domestic violence, I take these matters extremely serious and would never make false claims for personal pain or to damage someone's reputation. And you'll notice there, when she's talking about the claims that she's made, the focus is on false. It's not on truth. She doesn't say, I would never make not true or untrue claims. They're false. So I'm building up this narrative where the settlement, the fact she asked for money, she's associating with true, and the claim she's made, she's associating with false. And yeah... I take these actions serious and would never make false allegations. So we've got never again, and it's in the future tense. Would never, not have never, not did never. It's would never. So that's in the future. It doesn't say anything about her past actions. I did not seek public attention. We can see public attention seems to be somewhat important to her, and reported this matter through the proper legal channels. This is an active criminal matter, and I will continue to respect the legal process. I will not engage in rumours, well, you are, personal attacks, or respond to misinformation on social media. Oh, well, you are. What she tells us where her focus isn't is where her focus is. And I ask others to refrain from spreading false narratives. My focus is on healing my work. Healing, my work, not healing her work. Her work doesn't need healing, although some of the things she cooked, I think, might need some healing. And moving forward with integrity. I trust the legal process to address facts, and I hope everyone following this matter will do the same. Mila Adams. And I just think there is so much in there that says to me, yeah, again, just linguistic markers of deception from Mila Adams. Podcast bonus there. Let's join up with everyone else. We'll go back to the episode in a moment, but if this breakdown hits home, make sure you're following or subscribe to this podcast, because what I'm doing here isn't just a one-off episode. We are building a skill. And like any talent worth having, it takes repetition. The more you hear these patterns, the more naturally you'll spot them in your actual life. I hear it from listeners so often. Eventually, you can't unhear this stuff. You'll be in a meeting or on a call, and you'll start noticing the subtext earlier than anyone else, which gives you an edge in how you respond. If you aren't ready to commit to training just yet, but you found this episode valuable, do me a quick favour. Leave a rating or share this episode. It's the best way to feed the algorithms and ensure these tools get into the ears of the people who genuinely need them. And if you want to be more careful with how you speak, to talk with more clarity, authority and confidence, then do search for my other podcast. It's available everywhere. Just search for How Words Work. Right, let's get back to the episode. Let's go back into the courtroom now. And this is a little bit more serious because we're now going to listen to Mila tell the story of the alleged attack. And this is under direct examination. So this is friendly questioning that she's getting, which should allow her to tell her story. But when we look at the words, how is she telling it?
When you were in the bedroom, was the door closed?
Yes, the door was closed.
So when he came in, did he open the door?
Yes, he opened the door.
Did he leave it open after him?
No, he closed the door behind him.
And you said you were on the bed?
Yes, I was laying across the bed.
About how far away were you from the door?
About 4 or 5 feet, something like that.
So he comes in, closes the door behind him. What happens next?
He asked me to come here. He walked across the room and leaned back on the dresser.
Okay, and just to give a kind of a sense, where's the dresser in the room in relation to the door and?
Across the room, alongside the bathroom door.
Okay, so about how far away from the front door is the dresser?
Or 8 feet. I don't know a nice amount of feet.
Okay, so some amount of distance from it. You said he leans against the dresser?
Yes.
Or are you still on the bed at this point?
I'm still on the bed at this point.
What happens?
He comes in, he looks very angry. He was upset from the text exchange we were having. And in that text exchange, he was calling me bitches, and he was just very upset.
But what happened in that room?
He came in and he with intent to hurt me.
No. What, not his intent or anything. What actually happened?
He was leaning against the dresser. He asked me to get up to come here. I I got up off the bed and I came across to him and I stood in front of him, like I stood on the side of him because he was leaning back. I stood on the side of him and he was like, what was all that shit you was talking?
Now, this all has a very different tone from what we heard previously in her testimony. And for my money, there is a lot of truth in the story that she's telling, but it does end somewhere, as we'll see as we go through the breakdown. The first question is asked of her in that extract. When you were in the bedroom, was the door closed? She says, yes, the door was closed. A perfect example of what is a truthful answer. It's a yes-no question, and she's answering it straight away. Yes. And then she's saying what she's saying yes to. The door was closed, reflecting back the question perfectly. Was the door closed? Yes, the door was closed. You can see that is very different from some of the other yes-no question answers that she has provided in the other testimony we've looked at. So I'm going to say, whatever happened, the door was closed. So when he came in, did he open the door? Yes, he opened the door, she says. And again, it's the same construct. It's a yes, and then what she's saying yes to. She's confirming the actual content. Yes, he opened the door. She's not going extra. She's just directly answering the question. So I believe there was a situation where he opened the door. Notice also she's talking in past tense. Sometimes when people are making up stories, they talk in the present tense because it sort of is happening in your head at the time you're making it up rather than recalling a past memory. So look, I believe all of this part is truthful. Did he leave it open after him? No, he closed the door behind him. So she, again, is just really looking like she is telling the truth here. And you said you were on the bed. Same thing. Yes, I was laying across the bed. And so these answers are so simple and straightforward compared to what we've seen before. Simple and straightforward. Just another marker that the truth is being told. How far away were you from the door? She says about 4 or 5 feet, something like that. And I'm not going to knock down the vagueness there at all because distances are hard to estimate for many people, I think. So he comes in, closes the door behind him. What happens next is what she's asked. He asked me to come here. He walked across the room and leaned back on the dresser. And we got a change in tone now. She's asked what happens next, and it's what he said next. So she's not quite answering the question. Also, he asks in the present tense, not what happened next, but what happens next. She actually goes back to the past tense. He asked me to come here, walked across the room, leaned back on the dresser. So some markers of truthfulness there, but she seems to be deviating. It's not as straightforward. The stuttering comes in as well. He walked across the room and leaned back on the dresser. Now that word lots of people just use it as a sort of crutch, I had something to eat before I recorded this, but she hasn't used in anything we've seen before, and it's being introduced here. So it's another new element to the patterns that we've seen from Mila when she's talking. Leaned back on the dresser. Now at this point, I've just got a question mark over this. Is it just a crutch that she uses as something that she says? Is she a person or leaned back on the dresser can mean sort of leaned back on the dresser, or, it's not very committed to saying leaned back on the dresser. We'll see a lot more likes as we go. To give a sense, where's the dresser in the room in relation to the door? It's across the room alongside the bathroom door. So about how far away from the front door to the dresser? About 8 feet? I don't know. She mumbles a nice amount of feet is what she says. Now, again, I'm not going to knock someone for not being able to get an exact distance there. Interesting, a story about an assault. The word nice is not something I would necessarily expect to be there. It's not proof that she's lying. It's just an interesting word to use, a nice amount of feet in the middle of a story that's about assault. Okay, so some distance from it. You said he leans against the dresser. She says yes. Notice that she is not confirming that he leaned against the dresser. She's confirming she said he leans against the dresser. That's what the question is. You said he leans against the dresser. Yes. Are you still in the bed at this point? She says, I'm still in the bed at this point. But she doesn't say yes there. So she's drifting away, I believe, from the truthfulness that was at the beginning of this extract. What happens? And she says, he comes in. Then we've got some stutters. He looks very angry. He was upset from the text exchange we were having. So what happens? He comes in is the first thing she said. Now, this is big change because number one, he's in already. So she's telling the same action twice. That is something that happens a lot in deceptive stories because you've said it before. It's really easy to say again rather than say the new constructed thing. Also, if you're being deceptive, then you need to choose your words very carefully. You've got some stress going on. So again, repeating what you've said before is comfortable. He's come in twice, and actions that happen twice, hallmarks of deceptive stories. Again, it's not proof someone's lying. It's just another marker that could be happening. Also, you'll notice it's in the present tense. It's not he came in, it's he comes in. And again, present tense, he looks very angry. Not he was very angry. So this is just her summation there. He looks very angry, again, in the present tense, not the past tense, which is what it should be if we're telling a past story. Then she goes back to the past tense. He was upset from the text exchange we were having. And in that text exchange, he was calling me bitches and he was just very upset. So she doesn't really say what happens because what she's talking about is what he looks like. The fact that he was upset, but not how that upset was expressed. And then she goes backwards to talk about the text exchange. So she's gone back in time twice here, repeating the he comes in and then going back to what was in the text exchange. So she's not wanting to progress this story onwards, which is something, if you're lying, you might want to do is to stick in the comfort of not moving the story on and going on to tell the lie. So she doesn't say what happens at all, just that, what her impressions were. Also, notice he was just very upset, and just as a marker for deception word, he was just very upset. It's minimizing it just to say this was the only thing that was happening. That's all I want you to focus on, when the reality could be there was a lot more happening here, a lot more going on here, but she only wants you to focus on the fact that he was upset. You'll notice she hasn't said anything about herself and her actions in any of this so far. The prosecutor notices this, that she hasn't said anything that happened, but what happened in that room? And she says, and this is just, you'll notice this when I say it, he came in and he intent to hurt me. So he came in, it's the third time he's come in now, really comfortable saying that he came in, but not progressing the story on. And he intent to hurt me. How? There's no context given there at all. There's nothing there to say, he was swinging his fists, he was furious, he was, banging the walls or kicking the bed, or nothing there at all that suggests any sort of violence or intent to hurt at all. That's just her so-called impression there. He was intent to hurt me. And again, she doesn't say what happened. She doesn't say what, she only says there was an intent to hurt there. No, not his intent or anything. What actually happened? He was leaning against the dresser. Well, that's not happening again. He asked me to come here. I got up off the bed. Finally, we've got her actions, and I came across to him. And this is just a cracking bit here, and I stood in front of him, like I stood on the side of him because he was leaning back. And we've got a contradiction there. Again, when we've experienced something, when we've experienced all the movements and events, our brain just turns those mental images or whatever it has filed in our head, it just turns them into words. The best words that it thinks represents the situation that is going on. But here, she has to say, I stood in front of him. Actually, I stood on his side. They can't both be true. There is a contradiction going on there. So this doesn't feel like a truthful story now. In fact, the fact he came in the room, that felt truthful. But this part doesn't feel truthful because he was leaning back. I stood on the side of him. So we now have on the side of him, but you were in front of him. And he was like, what was all that shit you were talking? Now, the word like there is again, so was there more said there? What was all that shit you were talking? So I'm thinking there is some truth inside this story, that something happened inside that room. But what? Will the next extract put any light on that?
He was like, what was all that shit you was talking?
And then what happened?
And I was beginning to say, you said, and I couldn't finish my statement, and he smacked me.
So when you say he smacked you...
He smacked me with an open hand.
Do you know which hand he used?
Right hand, right side of my face.
Do you know which part of your face got hit?
The right side of my face.
And I know you're putting your hand against your cheek. Was it your cheek that got struck?
It was my cheek that got hit.
About how far away from you were you from him when that happened?
I was at the end of the dresser.
And where was he?
He was on the, like in front of on the other side of the dresser.
So about how much space was in between you?
Maybe 3 feet, 4 feet.
So you said that he I want to use the word. Did you say smack or slap? I don't know what the word was.
Smack.
So he smacked you,
Yeah.
and then what happened?
I went to try to like block him, like push him like this, to, like stop.
So again, I see you're pushing your hands out.
I pushed up. He's way taller than me. I pushed up for him.
How tall are you?
4'11", 5 feet.
And how tall is he? Do you know?
6 feet, 6'1".
So you said you pushed out and you made a motion with your hands. So does that mean you pushed with your hands
Yes,
around what, like his stomach, his chest, his shoulders?
up to block his hands.
Okay. And then what happened?
And then he Can I have a second? Can I have a second?
Yes, you can.
We'll talk about that part in a moment. It started there with, and then what happens? And she says, and I was beginning to say, you said, and I couldn't finish my statement, and he smacked me. So we've got a little bit of distance from the action then. I was beginning to say, you said. She doesn't say, I was saying, you said, but she just says, I was beginning to say. So she's putting in this unnecessary extra there. She could have just said, I was saying when he smacked me, but it's, I was beginning to say, you said, and I couldn't finish my statement, and he smacked me. Not then he smacked me, but and he smacked me. Feels like there's a jump in time going on there. The prosecutor says, so when you say he smacked you, and she interrupts to say he smacked me with an open hand, as if she hadn't said enough there, and that her priority was getting across the fact this happened with an open hand. The next part was pulled out in summing up. Do you know which hand he used? She says, right hand, right side of my face, and then the prosecutor pointed out that if I slap you with my right hand, which is this one here, although it might be mirrored on video, I'm going to connect with the left side of your face. But you'll notice Diggs has gone from all this. Do you know which hand he used? And her answer doesn't have him in it at all. She doesn't say he used his right hand. His right hand hit the side of my face. Diggs completely disappeared there. Another hallmark that this might not be a true story because the perpetrator has vanished out of her answer. Do you know which part of your face got hit? The right side of my face. And you're putting your hand up against your cheek. Is that your cheek that got hit? Yes, no question. She says it was my cheek that got hit. She doesn't say yes. And how far away from you were you from him when that happened? I was at the end of the dresser. And where was he? He was on the like, and we've got a like then in front of me on the other side of the dresser. Whoa, wait a minute. You were side by side a minute ago. Now you're in front of each other again. The story's not hanging together. When we haven't experienced something authentically, it's hard to turn that into language without contradictions and leakage turning out there. So about how much space was in between you? She says maybe 3 feet, 4 feet. 3 is well known as the liar's number. If we have to make up something on the spot, you'll be amazed at how many times the number 3 gets used. For example, 3 men attacked me. Why do we use 3? Well, if we say one man, we'll be asked very individual questions. And if we can't answer those questions, how tall was he? What colour was his skin? What was his hair like? How was he dressed? If we can't answer those questions on the spur of the moment, we'll sound dodgy. When it's 3 men, we can go, I don't know, there was 3 of them. It was all a bit too much to take in. Maybe they were this height, maybe they were that height, maybe they were wearing this. I can't really remember that well. And folk would go, yeah, fair enough, it was 3 people, traumatic situation. But 3 is used in deception so often. Things like that as well. Maybe 3 feet, 4 feet. You said he smacked you. I want to use that word. Did you say smack or slap? I don't know what the word was. Smack is confirmed. He smacked you, and then what happened? She said, I went to try to block him, push him, like this. All the likes come out there. I went to try suggests there was no success, by the way. I went to try. And it's not I tried. It's I went to try, as if she's watching the action rather than repeating what the action was. To block him, push him, like this. So I'm now going to say these likes are very literal likes, sorta, ish. Block him, push him, like this. We'll see why in a moment. So again, I see you're pushing your hands out. She says, I pushed up. He's way taller than me. I pushed up for him. That for is interesting, not pushed up at him or against him or anything like that, pushed up for him. But this is actually quite straightforward. I pushed up. He's way taller than me. I pushed up for him. This is the most, in terms of the action that has been described between them, this is the most truthful sounding one. And it's her. I pushed up. He's way taller than me. I pushed up for him. You'll notice the perpetrator of this pushing, which is her, is present there. I pushed up. I pushed up for him. We then get some questions about height. How tall are you? 4'11", 5 feet. How tall is he? Do you know? 6 feet, 6'1". So you said you pushed out and you made a motion with your hands. Does that mean you pushed with your hands? And once more, we're back into truthful sort of sounding answers. Yes. So in all of this, I'm believing that she did push at him because she's answering this much more straightforwardly than some of the other things. Around his stomach, his chest, his shoulders, she's asked, up to block his hands. Okay, and then what happened? And then can I have a second? Can I have a second? Now, this one could go two ways. This could be trauma. This could be the fact that what happens next is so traumatic, she doesn't want to tell the story. It's hard. Or it is just buying thinking time. So let's see what happens once she's had that second.
Right. When I went up to push his hand, block him, block him, he took his arm and he came around my neck with the grip of his elbow around my neck, and he began to choke me, pressure on my neck with his elbow.
So you said you pushed against him and then he put his arm around your neck?
Yes.
Do you know, were you facing away from him?
I was facing him.
You were facing him, he put his arm around your neck?
Yes, he spun me around.
He spun you around?
Yeah, I will have to show you more so than I can describe it.
Describe it as best you can.
I was standing in front of him. When he slapped me, I went to try to hit him back like this. And then it was he tackled me. Got me to try to keep from pushing him or protecting myself. And he put his arm around my neck like this, and he was choking me.
So you ended up in a position where his forearm or bicep was around your neck.
Yes.
And you said he choked you. What exactly? Did he put pressure on your neck?
Yes, he put pressure on me.
And were you able to breathe?
At first, and it kept getting tighter.
So were you able to breathe?
No.
About how long were you in this position?
I would say roughly I can't recall the amount of time. I just know it went from the edge where we were in front of the dresser to the side of the bed to him falling on top of me on the bed.
So about how far of a distance is that?
About maybe 4 or 5 feet, something like that, 5, 6 feet.
Now I think we're getting to the crux of what happened. All right, when I went to push his hat, block him, okay, so we've still got this stuttery thing there, but I want to look at what she does when she changes what she's going to say. She says, when I went to push his hat, block him, so it's very stuttery, but the first thing she says is push him, which is pushing him away, not blocking him, but push him is the first thing, the instinctive thing she reaches for with her words, and then she changes that to block. Why? Well, a push is aggressive, a block is defensive. And therefore, I'm now going, actually, was she the aggressor here? Was it her that was aggressive? And was she the one that was physical? Because this is way more believable. I get this more than any of the other things, as we'll see as we go. I think she was more the aggressor. My opinion That was what happened. She pushed him, and then she changes it to being like a block. Like block, he took his arm and he came around my neck with the grip of his elbow around my neck and began to choke me, the pressure on my neck with his elbow. Can you picture what happened there? Can you form a picture, an image of the process that happened there? The words don't flow and they don't create very much of an image of what happened. Again, a suggestion that she did not experience this and therefore cannot form authentic words to pull together that experience. The prosecutor says, so you said you pushed against him and then he put his arm around your neck. Yes. Do you know, were you facing away from him? And she says, I was facing him. So once again, we've got this two ways of them being. Sometimes she's by the side of him. Sometimes she was facing him. If she was facing him, how the hell could he put his elbow around her neck and choke her? It doesn't work. It physically doesn't work there. You were facing him and he put his arm around your neck. The prosecutor's there before us. Yes, he spun me around. So we have a again. Spun me around. Didn't happen, I don't think. And she has to go in and add some detail to her story because she realises the story she was telling makes no sense. If she was facing him, he could not put his arm with the elbow around her neck and choke her. So she has to go back in time to add more detail so that the story she's telling makes sense. It's another hallmark of a deceptive story. He spun you around? Yeah, I'm going to have to show you more than I can describe it. Describe it as best as you can, she's told. She goes back in time again. I was standing in front of him when he slapped me. Oh, no, you were beside him. So we've got contradictions there, very material contradictions there in this story. And that is really easy to do when you're being deceptive because you didn't experience it. And so therefore, you don't have that permanent memory like truthful events are marked in your head. I went to try to hit him back like this, and then it was like he tackled me. I went to try to hit him back like this. She's admitting to hitting him. Like I say, there are all these hallmarks there that she was the aggressor, not him, in my opinion. And then it was like he tackled me. Not that he did tackle me again, but we've got this like he got me to try to keep from pushing him or protecting myself. Pushing comes first, protecting comes second. So her priority was on the act outwards rather than the protection defensive one. And he put his arm around my neck like this and he was choking me. So you ended up in a position where his forearm or bicep was around your neck. Yes, she says, we've got a yes. You said he choked you. What exactly did he put pressure on your neck? And she says, yes, he put pressure on me. She is asked, did he put pressure on your neck? Now, I think this is truthful. He put pressure on me, but we don't know what that pressure is. Did he try and push her away to stop the hitting and the pushing that was going on? That would be pressure. But she doesn't confirm the pressure was around her neck. So I don't think that happened again because we've seen her patterns. We've seen how she can be truthful and say, yeah, he put pressure on my neck. Yeah, he opened the door. He closed the door behind him. I was laying on the bed. That's what she sounds like when she's telling the truth. Yeah, he put pressure on me, I believe, but not with his arm around his neck. And were you able to breathe? She says at first and kept getting tighter and tighter. She doesn't say that she couldn't breathe. Were you able to breathe? Again, it's a yes-no question. Which one goes in her favour? No, I couldn't breathe. That would be in her favour, but she doesn't want to commit to that. She doesn't say she couldn't breathe. She just says it got tighter and tighter. So were you able to breathe? No. How long were you in this position? And she says, I would say roughly, I can't recall the amount of time. I just know it went from the edge where we were in front of the dresser to the side of the bed to him falling on top of me on the bed. Finally, we have what happened in terms of like some description of events and movements, but it's very different to what the question was. And we've got new information being introduced about falling on top in the bed and so on, which she didn't mention before when she was asked what happened. How far of a distance is that? About 4 or 5 feet, something like that, 5-6 feet. The last thing she does is some sort of vagary on the distance again. So what do I think from all of that? I don't think an assault happened. He was found not guilty. And I think the jury picked up on so many tells from Mila Adams. I do think there was a confrontation in her room, if you like, that he did come in. The fact of the story she tells about him entering the room all sounds very believable. I could also believe, given the text messages that he got and was sending, he was upset. But there is nothing illegal in that. It is not assault. But from her words, the realistic perpetrator of, I wouldn't say an assault, but of action and, movement against someone is her on him. She was pushing him. She says, in her words, she hit him. So, jury, in my opinion, got it right. And I think that is the truth as to what was happening beyond that. Hope you enjoyed that. I really did enjoy looking at Mila Adams' testimony, even if I didn't particularly like her. Never a Truer Word is a website. There you will find a whole load more podcasts and video episodes. You can look at a lot more trial action there. There is so much to look at there. Or you can sign up for the monthly newsletter. You also find out how you can join the Never a Truer Word Facebook group and just learn more about detecting deception inside people's words. That's at neveratruerword.com. If you want more, you can become a member of the YouTube channel or a subscriber to the video podcast on Spotify. And there you will get exclusive episodes just for you. You'll get regular episodes like this before anyone else as well. That's becoming a YouTube member or a subscriber on Spotify. And it helps support the work that we do on this channel. We'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word. And remember, the truth is always in the words.